Yeah, it seems like it puts you in a pretty unique position since you have that comprehension from 30,000 feet. Like, I guess as somebody that, I have people that work for me and do, I'll say some of my more like repetitive or menial tasks. And then my job is, more like higher up trying to figure out all the structures, what kind of marketing needs to be done, and then getting people to execute. But the people that execute don't always understand, all the cogs that are moving around. So yeah, it seems like you should be, like I said earlier, you've got a lot of skills and you're adding to them. So it seems like you should be, pretty competitive fit and a valuable
Yeah, I hope
employee is
so.
the short version. Yeah.
Yeah, and
Uh,
and and so for me too. So like, I've been in a global role for 5 years. I've been on the marketing side for 3 years.
hmm,
Whereas this new role would, to me, it's something I could do. It would be a challenge, but it's something that I could do. It's not completely out of left field, completely something different.
right.
But it would be something new. It'd be a challenge, and it would be a growth opportunity for me to better understand that execution side of the framework and get more experience engaging with physicians. That then long term would make me a better marketer, um, better at setting strategies, etc. So
Hmm. So thinking about growth, I mean, this is kind of what people like us do. We kind of have a need to grow. So I kind of actually want to jump back a little bit. Um, like I do with all my guests, I try to stalk Instagrams and find out a little bit about who's coming on the show so we can talk about things. So I kind of want to hear from you a little bit. How do you go from being a over 200-pound quarterback to being a fairly competitive triathlete? Like what's the journey?
yeah, I mean it was a long journey. It was probably a 10-year journey. So yeah, I mean I guess what got me there is, so yeah, in high school I played football, basketball, and lacrosse in the state of Vermont, and I was pretty good within the state. But I was very much into weightlifting and getting big and getting strong
Hmm.
for those sports that, I mean, it helped if you lifted. And there was a few of my friends that also lifted too, but there wasn't that many, and it was amazing how much you could differentiate yourself by just lifting weights and doing that little extra to get bigger and well, not really faster, but stronger, maybe a
Hmm.
little faster.
Yeah.
But I would definitely say well, actually, I was probably a faster sprinter back then. But um, yeah, so like that's how I ended up. And then yeah, after a few years of hitting the weights hard, ended up 215 pounds. I'm 6'1", so um, I was pretty. I mean, I'm kind of tall, so but I was big,
Yeah.
much bigger than I am now.
Right.
I'm down to like 170 now, so I guess 45 pounds less than
Hmm.
my peak in high school. Um, but yeah, I mean, it was once I went to college at University of Connecticut. Part of the reason I went there is I had a chance to play Division III football at
Hmm.
a small liberal arts school, and I could have majored in math or economics or something like that. Um, but I was thinking long term, and I didn't really see what the next step after that would be.
Hmm.
So for me in high school, I made the decision to um, go to the University of Connecticut, focus on pharmacy. That would give me a good career path after school. Meanwhile, in school, I could play intramurals, I could go to the basketball, the football games, um, and so still be a part of sport. Um, so yeah, in at UConn, I still lifted quite a bit, but then in the summer, I would go back to Vermont and I would have an internship, but I would usually start to cycle and run and swim a little bit because there was a local triathlon where I grew up.
Hmm.
And yeah, so for a few summers, would go back to Vermont, would train a little bit for this triathlon, and then, um, but I was still pretty big. I was still carrying a lot of weight, um, but it was something that kind of satisfied my competitive drive and gave me something to train for and to something to try to better myself. Um, And then, I mean, I was at UConn for 7 years, so I went into UConn very much a ex high school football player, and then came out more of a triathlete,
Hmm.
and kind of made that transition throughout college of, um, rather than just doing intramurals, I joined the cycling team. We ended up getting a triathlon team, joined the triathlon team. Um, so slowly made that transition from 215-pound football player to 175-pound triathlete. And then after school, yeah, focused a little more. I'm solely focused on triathlon, I would say, in addition to working. So um, didn't really play any sports, and I guess any ball sports after college. So more just focused on swimming, biking, and running.
Hmm.
And then, yeah.
So I'm kind of curious, like, I've seen guys I've grown up with that were skinny, and then they start hitting the weights and they get real big. But I haven't seen a whole lot of the opposite direction. So like, did you have a plan or like a particular diet or like how do you make that transition from having all that bulk, but you're not fat, it's muscle. Like, how do you do that and then get lean again? How do you go the opposite direction?
Yeah. I mean, for me, I wasn't like naturally skinny to begin with.
Okay.
So it did take many years to kind of get down to where I am now. But
Mm.
really, I started eating better, started drinking less. I mean, college, it was very easy for me to hold on to that 215 pounds because, um, yeah, I mean, I had access to the dining hall, unlimited food there.
Hmm.
Um, did a good amount of drinking in college, so that got a lot of calories that way. And then I was still weightlifting too. Um, so yeah, I mean, generally, like I would weightlift throughout the school, the school year, and then in the summertime, I would try to run and cycle. So I'd actually usually get pretty lean by the end of summer, because I would stop weightlifting and I would do more endurance sports. Um, and then, yeah, when I went back to college for the fall semester, you would usually hit the weights again and eat and drink more and put that weight back on. But eventually just kind of stopped doing that cycle and
Hmm.
um, ate better, drank less, um, stopped going to the gym, and just started doing endurance sports. And yeah, over time, I've gotten leaner and leaner, and I guess lost a lot of that muscle mass that I once had.
Okay.
Um, so yeah, I mean, it was a long, slow, cyclical 10-year process that eventually got me to where I am today.
Yeah, not like a amazing overnight transformation, like
No, not at all.
some beer in between.
Yeah.
But I appreciate your honesty. Like I said, it's just you see, especially I'll call this the Instagram age, or like you see all these transformations. Like they went from fat and now they're like super buff. But with like triathletes, you, I mean, you've been nationals. Like you've been. I think you've been nationals, and you've been to all these very
Yeah.
competitive races and real cut, very lean, but not like you're not going to stick them on the front of the like Men's Health magazine or something because it's just not the physique that is ideal, so to speak.
Mhm.
So it's always interesting how like people can make that transformation. Um,
It's funny you bring up the Men's Health magazine because I used to read that religiously in
yeah.
college, and I would pull out like they had like inserts that you could pull out, and it would give you like an 8 week or 12 week plan on getting buff or something. So like that's like that would prove that was I guess my like my weightlifting coach. I would say like
Uh,
every now and then I would pull out one of those, and yeah, just that would provide me discipline to go to the gym and do these exercises. And
was it just you,
yeah,
or did you have buddies you went with?
I had a few buddies that I would work out with, but more so in high school because we had there was a pretty close knit group of us that we were kind of the select few that would religiously like work out in addition to going to football or basketball practice. So,
Mm-hmm.
and there I remember it must have been like 15 or 16, and my dad got me this like weightlifting book, and it was like my Bible because it had like, I knew nothing about weightlifting, but this like
Mm-hmm.
provided like the basics on like how to do a bench press, how to do squats, how to do all these different things that I've never done before. And I went to a small high school, so it's not like we had a weightlifting coach or anything like that. It was very
Mm-hmm.
much you had to be driven enough to figure out how to do this yourself. And there was one coach that was he got it, and he definitely helped out too. But for the most part, it was just like a few of us. And I remember when I graduated high school, I mean, it was kind of cheesy, but I'd say I donated this weightlifting book to the school or to the gym, and really just left the book in the weight room for others to refer to and figure out like how to do a bench press and how to do squats and things like that.
Were you just like, was it just like the men's health thing, or did you like, have you watched Pumping Iron, the documentary with Arnold Schwarzenegger and like in his like heyday of bodybuilding?
I haven't watched it yet, but it's
It's
piqued my interest.
like even if you're not into bodybuilding, just like the mind games that like Arnold plays with like the other guy, Lou Ferrigno's in it. It's it's just kind of interesting from that point. So I was just curious, like it doesn't sound like you were interested in being like giant bodybuilder, just like bigger functional like football player.
Yeah.
Okay. Um, I, I'm gonna get a little diverted. I saw on the EMJ site that you had your time for the beer mile listed. Was that during college when you were like training with all the beers, or like I, I've never been huge into beer, so I never did a beer mile, but I know it's like a huge thing for runners. Like I mean, how do you even get involved in doing one, or like how does that conversation come up?
Yeah, I mean, I guess it was kind of a so for probably 2 3 years it was kind of this like running joke between me and a few of my training buddies here in the greater Boston area, and we've always like talked about doing it, and this was like
Mm,
back when it was starting to get really popular. um, so we always talked about doing it, and then like one random, I think it was like a weekday night, or maybe it was a Friday. I don't even remember. But one of my buddy that one of my buddy who we trained with, he lived right near, I think it was a high school track. Um, and so one night we decided that we were gonna do a beer mile. And I think it was late in the season, so I think it was like October, November.
hmm.
Um, and yeah, so I mean, we were all in pretty good running shape, but um, it's not like we trained to chug beer, so that was kind of the variable. And I would actually say the slowest. So there was four of us that did it, and the slowest runner of the group actually won because the he could chug beer the quickest.
Okay.
Um, and I mean, I would say we all did pretty well. I think we all went sub 8, but it all just came down to who could chug the beer the quickest and then hold it down as you run a lap.
It's one beer,
But
one
yeah,
lap, right?
yeah,
Yeah.
1 beer, 1 lap. So it ends up 4 beers, 4 laps, total in 1 mile. But yeah, you can lose a lot of time if you struggle to put down the beer.
I feel like just even if you gave me like 4 cans of water, I feel like I'm gonna struggle to get 4 cans of water down, let alone beer.
Yeah, yeah,
Here's something I'm kind of curious about because I know different guys talked about like I don't know if there's a standardization. I know there's like the world record beer mile is like sub 5. It's ridiculous. But if there's like a standard 1 beer, 1 lap, or can you do 4 laps and then 4 beers, or 4 beers and then 4 laps? Is there like, do you have to do it 1 lap, 1 beer, or is it up to you however you want to complete it?
yeah. I don't know I'm pretty sure there probably is a rule book out there at this point.
Yeah.
Neither one of us like actually read it, but we we're pretty sure the consensus is you start by chugging a beer, and then you do a lap, and then between every lap you do have to chug another beer.
Okay.
So it does break it up like that. So I think you do have to do one beer, one lap, or 4 laps. I don't think you can save. I don't think you can run a mile really, really fast and then chug 4 beers.
Well, think about
That
this
would
is
be an
like,
interesting strategy. I wonder if that would actually work better, or
I'm not sure.
your mile time would be a lot quicker. But then trying
Right,
to
but
put
then
down
you're like
4 beers,
exhausted, you're winded, and now you got to chug 4 beers.
yeah, that was the hardest. Like the first beer was fine because that you start the race with the first beer, so
Yeah.
you're not winded. You don't have anything in your stomach at that point. Like your legs are fine. But then every beer afterwards, like you're huffing and puffing,
Hmm.
and it's hard to hold your to chug a beer. You need to hold your breath, and
Yeah.
that was like my challenge. Is I couldn't hold my breath long enough to continuously chug the second, third, and fourth beers. Like so I would like have to stop, take like a huge breath, and then like continue chugging. Whereas the guy that ended up winning, like he could do it in one shot. Like he would down each beer less than, I think it was probably less than or right around 10 seconds. And he wouldn't have to take a breath in between chugs.